Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be talking a little bit of strategy when you're drafting from those middle picks in a 12 team. My ADPs that we're using here are half PPR draft. I will try to include some conversation on full PPR. Generally speaking, I think of two wide receiver, two running back, one flex. Of course, things can change a little bit based on full PPR, based on three wide receiver. And I will try to include some of that conversation in here as we go along. What we are seeing on the screen, the color coding, I have the players who are most likely to be available to you to least likely to be available to you at each round. I will try to make sure that I'm not blocking this portion of the screen if I'm talking about it. I really hope I don't do that. But the color coding goes, the red is going to be doubtful. So I used the ADPs from both Sleeper and Fantasy Pros, and that's where sometimes if we'll use Josh Allen here when we get to it. So red is going to be doubtful. Orange is going to be that it's questionable that that player is going to be available for you. Yellow means that they're in range. So Jaden Daniels on both Fantasy Pros and Sleeper was within, I think, plus or three picks of pick 30. So 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 is his ADP. Fell somewhere in between those on both platforms. Now, in the case of Josh Allen, you see his color code goes from orange, yellow to green. Green meaning that they're quite possibly, likely, or even possibly, whatever the word you want to use here, but, more likely to be available because at least in the case of Josh Allen, in one of those platforms, he fell within that ADP. In one of them, he fell beyond it by a few spots. And then likely means that they fell. So going back to pick the range for round 3, pick 28, ADP between 28 and 32. That possibly would have been 33, 34 ADP, and likely would have been that they had an ADP of anywhere from 35 to 36.9, less than 37. So that's how I did this for this video. Now, what I will say, if you're a 10-team 10-team league person, I did a video earlier this week, and we'll have one later this week on both the picks 1 through 3 and then picks 8 through 9. And you wonder what the heck's going on here? Why is this 12 team and where's the middle of the league for 10-team PPR? I plan on doing that video. I plan on doing a video for 12-team from the early picks and from the later picks as well. There are other videos that I definitely need to get into in terms of everybody starting to release their updated rankings videos, so I need to get those out ASAP. Should be at least one of those out this week, if not a video every day this week, with 2 of those coming out, as well as then I really want to get to some of the late risers and fallers that are going on. And don't forget, for some good practice against humans, where we can really see how the draft is going in actuality beyond just looking at ADPs and drafting against computers for practice, you can join us here on the channel every Tuesday, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've been going live, having a good time. Got a pretty good group, almost full, pretty much all of the drafts. So we are just on the precipice of having a full group there. Now, when you're seeing, I explained, so for Jalen Hurts, he is falling somewhere between in range to questionable here with the 4th round. So this just gives us a good idea. For the most part, if you're seeing a guy in full red, we're not expecting them to be available at all. Now, for the draft strategy, I want to start out by putting myself in the best situation by the time we get to pick 6. How is that going to impact my decision in round 1? And so I worked backwards to start off here, and then, of course, I look forwards and see if there's any changes that I want to make along the way. But when I look backwards, when I start out with round 6 and I look at the most likely groups that I'm going to want to draft, the wide receivers and those running backs, I prefer this wide receiver group. Generally speaking, there's just more of them that are likely to be available. as well as the fact that I just think that this group, especially when we get into like a George Pickens, even Jameson Williams at this point in 12 team, and, you know, I like my Chris Olave a lot. I think Calvin Ridley's going to be a good pick. Jerry Jeudy, I understand if you like him. I just like this group a little bit better than this group, generally speaking. I only get one pick here. That's another thing to keep in mind. Sorry, let me show those running backs one more time there. Another thing to keep in mind when you're drafting from the middle of your drafts is that you dictate how the draft goes the least. So you need to be willing to get aggressive when it comes to, especially if you want one of the tight ends or quarterbacks earlier on in the draft, or if you are thinking, you know what, there's 5 quarterbacks, generally speaking, left in this tier currently. I'm going to take this position player instead because I like 2, 3 of those running quarterbacks, whatever, quite a bit. And I think one of them has a pretty decent chance of falling to me with my next round draft pick. Maybe get aggressive and just go ahead because you, once again, it's so long between your picks when you're right there in the middle of the draft that those runs can happen, and then maybe within that run, the only quarterback that's remaining of those 5 quarterbacks is not one that you like, and now you've missed on that tier. Now maybe you've tilted and you start drafting poorly as well. So just to show, here are the quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield's supposed to be available, Patrick Mahomes not, and I don't really love either one of those for where they're going in the drafts. And then TJ Hawkinson, probably going to be gone. Travis Kelce, probably available. So, you know, do with that what you may. Of course, you have the ability to disagree with me on some of these things. I don't know if I showed this well before. You have the ability to disagree with me. You have the ability to look at this, create your own idea of what your strategy would be. And if you have more interest in this, I do have this saved. Let me know. I could share the file with you via a link. Just, you know, drop a comment. Let me know that you want this out there. And I can do that for you once I see that. So going back to now starting here, like I said, I prefer the wide receivers. So I'm going to plan on taking a wide receiver with my 6th pick, most likely. Of course, the board could change or prior picks could force me into a different situation depending on how the draft goes. And when it comes to round 5, I actually like the running back options more here. You know, if James Conner's still available, great. R.J. Harvey, Travion Henderson, I'm happy to take a risk on them enough. DeAndre Swift, I actually have higher up than Henderson. David Montgomery's a fine pick. I don't love it, but also for where he's going, it's like, it's okay. Compared to Jameson Williams, Tedros McMillan, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Devonta Smith, even, I'm not in love with those, and it's not looking likely that DK Metcalf or Courtland Sutton are going to be available, who I would be happy to get at this point. So wide receiver, running back, 4th round, I lean the running backs here. Now you can see this group. I'll show you one more time those 5th round running backs in case I was covering them up for too long. But here's the running back group. We've got Alvin Kamara, Omarion Hampton, not likely but possibly there. Kenneth Walker should be going here right around this range. He might be available for your pick or not. Chuba Hubbard, there's a pretty decent chance that you could get him anywhere in the middle rounds. And James Conner, Joe Mixon even, should be available for you. George Kittle, probably not. Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, probably not. So not looking great to get a tight end or a quarterback in the 4th round strategy-wise. So once again, leaning this group of running backs compared to Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Davante Adams, all not likely to be there. DJ Moore, DK Metcalf should be there. Courtland Sutton should be there. Maybe I get a little bit lucky and a DK Metcalf falls, a Courtland Sutton falls, but DJ Moore probably won't fall if you like him. Just a heads up. And then that's going to bring us on to the 3rd round. So we've got running back, wide receiver going 4, 5, and 6. And in the 3rd round, I'm not in love with the most likely wide receivers to be available. Like, I don't absolutely feel like I need to get these guys onto my roster. JSN's available, Tyreek Hill's available, great. Ladd McConkey's available. awesome, but not expecting that. The running backs, Jonathan Taylor, not expecting him to be available. Looking at half PPR or something, Chase Brown, I think his value goes up here a little ways, and you like him a little bit more, but also the more likely probably that he's gone. Kyren Williams might be available when you look at Breece Hall. Obviously, I think his ADP might be falling soon enough. Been some concern amongst experts out there, talking heads, due to his situation, and it does bring a little bit of added concern to him with all of camp news coming out about Braylon Allen and Breece Hall's usage and Breece Hall's comments about being with the team. Alvin Kamara probably going to be likely. I do like him available, half PPR, all the better. James Cook, I do like quite a bit too. When it comes to your tight end, you're probably not expecting Trey McBride to be available there if you wanted to go tight end. So you can see, for the most part, unless you might reach on Trey McBride in the second round, which I don't suggest doing based on the other players available, looking like it's pretty rough if you want a Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle, one of those best three at the very least, and even Sam Laporta, not incredibly likely. That should be orange to yellow. Then when we look at the quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson probably gone, but Jaden Daniels, very possible that he'll be available. Or I like Joe Burrow quite a bit, and he'll probably be available for you to get if you wanted to get him. And so I'm actually going to say that I think that you can pop off on taking a quarterback here in the third round, in part based on some of my experience in doing some mock drafting so far this offseason. And then when we come to round 2, in a 2 wide receiver league, I think that you could go quarterback out of these options. I would be happy to do that. However, I think that you could go running back, not quarterback right here. Jonathan Taylor likely to be available. Chase Brown likely to be available. Josh Jacobs, obviously a good option if he's available. Bucky Irving, probably not available, but he definitely might be. And Devon Achane, even less so. Full PPR, once again, definitely going to be grabbing Devon Achane if he's available here. But I do lean wide receiver. Drake London may be available. A.J. Brown probably, possibly available. Ladd McConkey very likely to be available. I like that a lot. Also, full PPR, Ladd McConkey over Achane. I'm probably doing that, depending on exactly what my first round pick was, probably. But when I'm trying to develop this strategy, I'm going to say wide receiver, especially if it's full PPR. Although, Drake London, Drake London and A.J. Brown, full PPR, their values go a little bit down. But then we're looking at Josh Jacobs, most likely Jonathan Taylor, who I don't know that he's necessarily a full PPR beast. So, questionable there. We already looked, you could go quarterback here, but we decided we want to go quarterback here. That made more sense for us to do. I think it does. And I'd rather not take one of these quarterbacks over these running backs or these wide receivers. I just don't think that the value is there to take the quarterback at that point. So we are at wide receiver, quarterback, running back, wide receiver is what it looks like, which brings us to our first round pick. Based on what we've done and based on what we're seeing in terms of likely availability for us in the middle picks, of course, it depends where you're picking from in the middle, and who's been taken ahead of you, I'm leaning once again wide receiver without even taking in mind the previous portion of that draft. If you want running back, that is going to change how we look at things. So if we were to go running back first, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley were to fall for you. You like Jahmyr Gibbs, enough trust in that, which I have no problem with, and he falls to you. You like Derrick Henry, you like Ashton Jeanty, especially not talking full PPR. Especially in the case of Derrick Henry. Then I think you go running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back. Did I get running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver? Let me try that again. You would go running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, I believe, if you go running back first round. Of course, you could go Joe Burrow or Kittle if they're available, if one of them falls into your lap in the fourth round. But if not, if you like tight ends in round 5 or 6, there are going to be some options there, at least for you. Once again, not the biggest proponent of drafting these guys at this point in the draft. And this is all, of course, assuming it's not a 3 wide receiver league. If you are in a 3 wide receiver league, let's go back to my original take on starting off with the wide receiver here, following that up with a wide receiver quarterback possibly, but then even that becomes less likely of an option. Running back, best player available, running back, wide receiver once again. So I did a Fantasy Pros mock draft going with my primary strategy that I just talked about there. 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. I got Malik Nabers, A.J. Brown, and Cortland Sutton for my wide receivers. I got Alvin Kamara and David Montgomery for my running backs. Personally, I would have gone with Harvey over Montgomery, going for that upside. But I wanted to stick with ADP here just to kind of show you what the most likely thing is, the players that you most likely like at those points that were available were. And I got Jaden Daniels in at quarterback. So I am pretty darn happy with that group. A little bit of risk at the running back room, but I do feel that I am able to make up for that in the coming rounds. I'm pretty happy with some running backs that should be available 7th, 8th round, and even beyond, and even late draft. So, guys, I think that was really it for this video. I'm going to quick give it a once-over before we conclude. All right, yeah, I'm just going to leave off on this note. Just looking at this, one thing I want to touch on again is if George Kittle's available there in the 4th round, if we followed our strategy prior to that, we go wide receiver, quarterback. Even if we went wide receiver, running back, then you can go wide receiver here. But if we were to follow this strategy up to round 3, and then in round 4, we get a surprise. George Kittle's available. We've already taken a quarterback, which I don't love taking quarterback, tight end. But I look at the running backs. I look at the wide receivers. Depending on who's available, I very well might want to go George Kittle here. So now we go tight end there. And then we were going to go running back here anyways. So there we go. We got our RB1, basically doing a quicker 0 RB strategy at this point. And then we can get our RB here as well. And if we do go 0 RB, if it's a 3 wide receiver league or something, and you end up popping off on a wide receiver here, or you could just go back to taking a wide receiver here like our original strategy said anyways, it doesn't matter too much. But in this event of a 2 wide receiver, 2 running back league here too, I'm cool if Caleb Johnson or Tony Pollard especially is available here as my RB2. I think that's a fine value. I like that. I have no problem with that. So if I'm rocking RJ Harvey, Tony Pollard, and then I already got my tight end. I'm not taking the second tight end. I already got my quarterback. If it's Jaden Daniels, I might take another quarterback later on just in case he gets injured and just in case things with Terry McLaurin were to go south. All of a sudden, I'm not loving that as much. I'm still going to have the opportunity to take a few extra running backs, just go a little running back heavy throughout the rest of the draft and pepper in some more wide receivers, of course, along the way. So there we go. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning on in. I hope that you got something from this. Any thoughts, obviously, always drop them in the comments. I always appreciate them. Thank you very much, and have a good one.